Oh, it's me, SK Nicholas, enjoying a cup of tea, green tea, with the tea bag still in. I always keep the tea bag still in. I like that kick, so I'll drink that. It's another sort of a story time with Stephen. Uh, I'm not gonna read anything. I'll leave that for a bit, and yeah, I'll talk about writing another. Well, I will talk about writing, but this one's sort of more memories. Um, I remember, and obviously stuff that kind of influences my writing as well. I'll begin once I have another sip. It's just the right temperature. It's hot, but it's not. It doesn't burn my lips. So I just this minute, I remembered. Um, I was in Wickham, High Wycombe, where I went to uni and lived for several years. Um, I remember I went out. Can't remember who I was out with, but I got back in the early hours, and I got back into my room, and I remember sort of taking my clothes off, throwing them to the left side of my bed, and I got into bed. I fell asleep, woke up in the morning, and sort of looked around me, and then there were my clothes to the left, and I went to pick up my pile of clothes. I think it was like a jumper. I think I might have left my bottoms on, but I went to put on my jumper, and I touched it, and it was all wet, and I just thought, oh, maybe it was raining the previous night. It wasn't raining. It wasn't raining. And I thought, and I remember looking around thinking I must have I must have knocked a glass off. And I looked around, no glass. I thought, well, this is mental. This is absurd. And then I picked the jumper up and I sniffed it, and it smelled of urine. Yeah, I must have in the middle of the night just got up and pissed on my jumper. I had no idea why I did that. But yeah, I just remembered that. I just randomly remembered it. I thought, God, I hope I don't tell anyone that in bizarre memory. I mean, that's not kind of tea break. Uh, that's not something I can really write about. I guess I could, but what started it off is I've mentioned kind of my childhood a bit more in the past kind of maybe 12 months of writing. Um, some of it's in the second journal, but predominantly a lot of it I'll start to go into the third journal with. I've started to sort of look at my childhood a bit more because in the first journal, I didn't really mention my childhood. Maybe once or twice, but it wasn't there. The second journal is more about, sort of relationships, and going back and sort of, looking at my 20s, but now I'm still sort of looking back and looking at the present, but I do like to go back and look at my childhood a lot more. And I touch upon my grandparents and certain things like that. But I remember when I was in high school, which is secondary school, and I was probably about maybe 13 or so. Oh, it's probably going to be really annoying to watch this and for me to do that, but don't care. Um, yeah, when I was about 13, there was sort of 13, 14, there was this girl in the I think she was in the year below. She may have been 2 years below. I don't know what her name was, her real name, but she was bullied. She was really, really bullied, and people refer to her. I only know her as this term, and it's really bad. I feel quite bad, but everyone just called her Pizza Face. Yeah, I was never partook in anything, in any form of bullying. I was just always there, and I would witness stuff, as many other people did. And I would, I would just sort of walk along, in the playground, and she'd always walk. She's very sort of awkward, very gangly, not really sort of attractive, and she had spots. I could visualize what she looked like now. and she would walk along the playground, and kids, predominantly sort of boys, would sort of shout at her, pizza face, and they would spit. They would actually spit at her, spit in her face. It's dreadful. Again, I never did anything myself like that, and I knew it was wrong. But in hindsight, I think, God, if I really should have gone up to a teacher and said, "This is disgusting. What's going on?" But as a kid, you think, oh God, I don't really want to say something because what happens if everyone turns on me? But yeah, I remember this girl. I'm tempted to say her name was Laura or Laura something, but apparently she had a sister, and her sister was really attractive, and a lot of kids fancied her. But this poor girl, yeah, she was bullied so badly. I remember seeing people just spitting at her and shouting at her. I go back and think, my God, isn't that so awful? Again, I was never bullied as a kid, and in hindsight now, I look back and think, shit. I hope she's doing okay. I hope she got over that. With that kind of thing, with that kind of level every day, that poor girl going into school and putting up with that, and everyone just kind of being like that. I think, fucking hell. But yeah, so I was remembering about that earlier on. It just suddenly came to me. And there was certain other moments. Some are to do with relationships, others aren't. I remember my first day of that school. That first day. This will be the last tea break. I'm not going to do it anymore because it's annoying. Good. The first day of secondary school, I was about 11, I think. Um, all the new kids went in the assembly hall. It was like 500 of us, or it felt like it. There were shitloads of kids. And we all went in, and I remember there was a teacher called Mr. Pemberton. He wasn't a head; he was just a teacher, but he was kind of one of the senior ones. And he said, "Right, I'm going to call out your names." He was quite sort of a stern guy, and he said, "I'm going to call out your names, and the names I call, you go to the back with that teacher, and that will be your tutor group for the next sort of 5 years." It didn't seem possible at the time. Everyone's names were called out, apart from two names. Some random kid and my own name. Yeah, like that was a surprise. And I remember that Mr. Pemberton said, "Right, what's your name?" And this kid went, "Oh, Alex." And he said, "Oh, I've called your name out already. You should have been listening." And he said, "Go over there." And there was literally just the three of us in this hall. And he said, "Right, go through those doors up there." And he looked at me and said, "What's your name?" And I was like, "Oh, Stephen." And he said, "Stephen what?" And I was like, "Nicholas." And he said, "Your name's not down." And I was like, "Yeah." Like, again, like that's a surprise. So he said to me, "Right, go through those doors up there. That's your tutor group." So I went up, and it was in a science block. And this teacher, I can't remember her name, she had red hair, she had ginger hair, and she was sort of going on, and she was halfway through the lesson. And I sat down, and then she said to everyone, "Right, turn on your Bunsen burners." And you had the little gas, kind of the little, I don't know what it is, the little key thing, the little, that you turn, and then that was connected to your Bunsen burner through that tube. And everyone else had connected the tube to the gas, and of course they were doing that, but she just said, "Turn the key thing," and I turned it, and all this gas started coming out. And she ran over to me because I was sort of stood there like, what the fuck? She ran over, and she turned it and went, "What the?" Oh, she didn't swear, but she was like, "What are you doing? What the hell are you doing?" She said that. She said, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, You told me to turn the key." And she said, "Well, you've got to attach the Bunsen burner to it." And she was going on, and I was trying to say, "Look, I've just come in." Like, never in my 15 years have I ever had anyone so stupid. And I was just sat there like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And when my first day at sixth form, I remember I went there, job done, bish bash bosh. And when I was coming home, I used to catch the 24 bus. But accidentally got on the 24X. And the 24X it sort of went three-quarters of the way, and then it just turned back to the bus depot in Luton. And I remember getting on this bus, everyone else sort of was on the top deck left, and I thought, well, there's probably people, on the bottom one. And it was approaching this road called Catherine Drive, which sort of really goes from Luton into Dunstable. And I thought, right, it's going to go down Catherine Drive. and it carried on. And I was thinking, shit, I know what it'll do. It'll keep going, and there's a roundabout, so it will go round the roundabout and it'll come back. So I thought, job done. And it didn't, and it just went down this dual carriageway past Luton Town Football Club to the bus depot. And I was just upstairs thinking, oh God, I was only like 16. And when the bus driver pulled into the bus depot, uh, I got off, and he looked at me. He was really shocked. He was like, what were you doing? And I went, oh, I fell asleep. And so I got off into Luton, and between Luton and where I was, living with my parents, it was about like 5 or 6 miles. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have a bank card at that point. So I thought, I'm fucked. And the thing is, in terms of walking between Luton and Dunstable, you could double that distance. You can't just walk down a road. You have to go through everywhere. So there was this old train track, which is now a bus lane, and I thought I'm going to walk down the train track. And I walked down it, and it was all overgrown, and it took me about nearly 3 hours. No, 2 hours. It took me about 2 hours to walk, and I was covered in scratches and thorns. I was stung by stinging nettles. And I remember getting home and just saying to my parents, I'm not doing this. I'm not putting up with this shit. But eventually, they sort of talked me out of it, and they said, well, don't get in the wrong fucking bus then. But yeah, those little moments. Some of them I've touched upon, and it's weird, isn't it? Like I said, you go back now, and I think some people probably they don't need to remember that kind of stuff. It serves no purpose. But for me as a writer, it's my bread and butter. It's my bread and butter to go back and to remember this stuff. So I think, oh, can I put that in a story, and can I reevaluate what happened to me there? Can I, again, in terms of relationships, that's another thing, isn't it? You remember stuff, and now most of the time I can laugh at stuff that happened, and other times I think, shit, I acted wrong. I remember talking to Jimmy Campkin. Obviously, I've mentioned several times. Probably back in 2011, I think I was dating Sarah. Obviously, written about in the journals on the blog, and I was dating Sarah, and we was engaged at that point, and we were both unemployed, and we were walking down into Dunstable, into the town centre, and we went in a KFC, and we were going to buy something, and we went in, and the guy was kind of behind the counter going, come on, give me your order, and she couldn't kind of decide what to have, and he laughed. The guy behind the counter, just a very innocent kind of, you guys kind of thing. So I kind of went ahead and ordered, and I said to Sarah, like, right, come on, what you having? And she was like, no, I'm not having anything. And I was like, what do you mean? You've got to order. I've ordered already. I paid for my food. And she was like, I'm not having anything. And we left, and I had this meal. It was like £8 meal, and I was like, look, why you suddenly turned? And she said, the guy was laughing at me. So what do you mean he was laughing at you? And she was like, yeah, he was laughing at me. I was like, no, he wasn't. He was laughing at us because we were indecisive. And I said, look, let me go and get you. Let me buy you something. No, I'm not buying. I'm not having anything. So at that point, Jimmy Campkin, who at that point was living in St Albans, he was down for the day. I didn't know, unbeknown to me, and he was walking along the other side of the road, and he saw me and Sarah outside the KFC, and he told me it sort of a while later, maybe 6 months or it might have even been longer. He said that he saw us, me and Sarah, outside KFC, and he was about to cross the road and just go, hey guys. And at that point, I just sort of flipped. And I said to Sarah, well, I'm not fucking eating this by myself. And I grabbed this £8 KFC and I slammed it in a bin. And we had this argument. And Kevin said he was literally halfway across the road, and there was me kind of, yeah. Obviously I can laugh about that now, but not at the time. Another time again, I've mentioned Benicia, who's my ex-girlfriend. We went for a meal in an Italian restaurant in Dunstable, and this was a couple of years ago. We see, the more I do these videos now, I can feel myself doing all these weird little mannerisms. The first videos, I was just kind of saying, oh, I look bleary. but most of the time I was quite kind of with it. Whereas now I find myself making noises. I find myself starting to do these little things that is me. It's what I do. It's like, I'll be in a conversation with someone and I'll just suddenly start talking in a weird voice, or start kind of, I'll do it more and more. In 10 videos time, I will start singing. I know I'll start singing. I'll just literally halfway through a conversation, I'll lose my train of thought, and then I'll just start singing. So yeah, it will happen. But anyway, so me and Benicia went for this meal in an Italian restaurant, and I think it went really well. It was quite nice, quite lovely, and everything was fine. And if memory serves, uh, towards the end of the meal, literally we'd had our kind of desserts, I think, and we were drinking up, and I said something. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a nasty comment. I wasn't a drunken kind of like little bitchy barb, but I just said something flippant. And I remember saying it and kind of laughing, like, and then Benicia was just looking at me, that look. And I just thought, shit, what have I done? And she refused to speak to me for the rest of that meal. And I was there trying to kind of make light of it, going, "Oh, look, I didn't mean it." And she was just giving me that look. And then when we left, she just bolted and was 10 steps ahead of me, 10 strides ahead. And every time I tried catching up, she wasn't having any of it. She was just walking off. And then we got back to mine and we argued. And I think she threatened to leave. And then I sort of apologized because it's always my fault. Everything I do is always my fault. So yeah, little memories. Again, at the time it wasn't those things aren't pleasant, but in hindsight you go back and yeah, for most people that kind of stuff, those memories, it's not important. But again, as a writer, it's kind of my bread and butter. All those little bubbles of time and space. That it's those moments now that I look back on and I think again, I want to preserve them because they're beautiful moments, and obviously I want to write about them because I think they could be quite interesting if I can do it well enough. Obviously, sometimes most of the time when I write, I don't mention names. I don't really name names because I don't think you need to. I don't think people need to know those names. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I will mention a name if it's normally something, if it is quite sort of a if there's no sort of embellishment involved. Some memories I've touched upon, there's no need to embellish. There's no need to this, that, and the other. It's just a straight down the line kind of memory. And I think I'll use a name because I'm not gonna embarrass that person. I'm not gonna kind of paint them in a bad light because it's just straight down the middle. But most of the time, I won't use names because I don't think you need to know. But yeah, I'm coming up to 20 minutes. There were so many other memories I could talk about. There was a guy once called Alex Coombs when I was at school, and he was being bullied. He was a new kid. He was only there for 2 years, and he was picked upon because he was a bit mouthy, but he was harmless. And one day we was in school. The last lesson of the day was in art, and I could hear all the other kids say, "We're going to jump Alex. We're going to jump him after school outside the school gates." And when the sort of the bell rang, Alex was the first out the class, and I ran up to him and I said, "Look, you better run home because everyone's going to jump you." And he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, thanks, thank you." And he just ran. And of course, all the other kids came up and said, "What did you say to Alex?" So I said, "Oh, nothing. I don't know." And they said, "Where did he go?" And obviously, Alex had gone to the right, and I went, "I think he went to the left." And yeah, he always thanked me for that afterwards. Again, I didn't do it because I was looking for brownie points, but it was a nice moment. So again, something potentially I could write about, something that I could tap into that moment. Again, just because I can. I want to keep it alive. I want to keep that magic alive. One more memory before I go. What can I talk about? Uh, uh, put on the spot now. I had loads of stuff earlier. Loads of stuff. There was one time I bit my girlfriend's arm in school. I was probably about 6, and I can't remember who it was, but I was dating this girl and we was in the playground, and I bit her on the arm. And the teacher saw me do it and looked at the girl's arm and was like, there were bite marks in her arm, and I was told off. I wasn't suspended, but I was told off. I was a very naughty boy. Fuck it, I'm not gonna leave it just there. I'll go to 22. 22 is the new 20. 20 was the new 10, and 10 was the old hour. Again, pointless. So yeah, I remember biting her arm. Um, there's other stuff. Now I'm tired. I'll probably yeah. So bubbles of time and space. It's a sort of a continuation of what I've sort of mentioned before. I'll probably have a Red Bull in a bit. I'll do some writing. I'm behind with everything. I'm really behind with everything. Um, but again, I'm never gonna catch up now. I've come to the conclusion, the realization that there was a point in my life when I could say I'm up to date with everything, whereas now I'm not. I'm not. So yeah, I'm SK Nicholas. Again, a little sort of a story time with Stephen, a little catch up. I'll do some more videos in the future where I'll sort of talk about stuff in, actual writing kind of stuff, stuff. Um, the last thing, when I was a little boy, around my nan and granddad's on my mum's side, they used to have a biscuit tin, a Cadbury's biscuit tin, and it used to sit on top of the cupboard. And obviously, when I was a little kid, there was no way I could reach it, even if I stood in the chair. And then I always remember when I got to a certain age, I could just about reach it and lift it off, and it was there. It was always full of biscuits. Bourbons were my favourite. The sort of two slabs of chocolate biscuit, and then the sort of the chocolate cream in the middle. Bourbon biscuits. I love them. Yeah, that biscuit tin. Where is it now? No one knows for sure. No one can say. Not me. Not I. See, I'm SK Nicholas. See ya.